and welcome in to a new episode of Heat of the Moment. My name is Micah. I'm joined, as always, by my fellow host and friend Lino. We are back. We have been taking some off-season time to ourselves, preparing for what should be a fun season upcoming. But unfortunately, we did have to record this show because we got some sad news about our beloved Tyler Herro. So this episode will mostly just be focusing on what Tyler's absence will mean for the team, short term and long term. Lino, in general, how have you been? And then, of course, what was your initial reaction to our poor Tyler having to undergo, I guess we'll call it foot ankle surgery? It sounds like he's going to be out about 2 months. So what are you feeling?
I'm feeling mostly good before I got that news. As you know, I just got back from vacation. I was in the Swiss Alps for 2 weeks, finding my inner peace after a really tough Miami Heat season, just really getting to the core of what it means to be a Miami Heat fan. I climbed to the top of the highest mountain I could climb. I did some meditation, did some yoga, had some deep thinking, said some prayers, came down from that mountain, actually ran into some Heat fans out there. I was wearing this sweater that Micah got me for my birthday this summer. And actually was just walking around Lucerne in Switzerland, and someone was like, "Go Heat." I was like, "Who was that?" I turned around, and it was like a nice little international head nod moment. So I was feeling really good, came home, got back to work, and texted Micah like, "Hey, it's been a super quiet off season. Is this kind of strange?" And within 24 hours, Tyler Herro decided that he heard my thoughts, he heard my prayers, and felt it was the right time to have season-altering surgery. And yeah,
Yes.
I felt like I accidentally spoke that one into existence. So sorry about that, everybody. But here we are, and we'll see what happens. How are you feeling, and how did you take the news, and how mad were you at me for bringing it up before it happened?
Well, yes, first and foremost, I am angry with you above anyone else. But no, it's one of those things as a fan, especially I feel like long-term fans, really of anything, but probably specifically sports teams, you're always kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop. And there have been a couple players, not maybe of Tyler's caliber, that got announced they were going to have surgery on their thumb, or Brandon Clark's going to be, or Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be late to start the season, and Anthony Davis is just starting 5-on-5. And I had the thought just a few weeks ago, like, man, like, I guess everything's good on the Heat front. The Euro guys are playing. We haven't heard anything about anyone else, so I guess everyone else is doing good. And then, of course, this news comes across the timeline. I believe Five Reasons Sports reported it first, and it was one of those things where the surgery hadn't even taken place yet, so you don't really get a timeline until the surgery's taken place. This was all happening on Thursday. Initial reports were saying maybe 8 to 12 weeks, if not longer. Sounds like the surgery went well. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know exactly what in the surgery went well to make them think it would be on the shorter end, but it does sound like it'll be 8 weeks. In terms of basketball, that's 2 months. We're about a month from the season, so it sounds like Tyler's going to miss the first month of the season, and obviously all of training camp and everything, and that'll equate to around 14 to 15 games. There's a stretch of road games around that time, so I would assume they'll wait till they're back home and can acclimate him properly. But Lino, I guess we can take this a lot of different ways, but we know this team is challenged offensively. We know really by a wide margin Tyler's the best offensive player. When you started to think about what this offense will look like without him, who are guys you think might be able to step up in those spots and maybe provide a little bit of a spark offensively in his absence?
Let me tell you about a guy named Terry Rozier and what he can bring to the Miami Heat. No, I'm just kidding. Spo, don't even think
I was
about
about
it.
to say, don't put it on his radar.
But honestly, I think, prior to this free agency period that we had over the summer, I agree that there was a pretty wide margin in regards to offensive talent between Tyler and the previous roster. But with the addition of Norm Powell, I do think while Tyler is a player I would say is much better than Norm Powell in a lot of different regards, I do think it's much closer than anybody else on the roster. And I think Norm Powell is an incredibly talented offensive player. And this will give him a little bit more usage to really get comfortable. I think this is a good opportunity for him to really feel confident in taking the lead here. I know it can be difficult coming into a new team, not wanting to bump heads and play more passively. I think this at least gives him a runway to get comfortable. And then when Tyler comes back, there is, in certain ways that could be a bad thing, in which they kind of have to figure this out much later in the season. But sometimes it can be nice to be able to have that open space to play around with and get comfortable without having to worry about bumping heads with another high usage player. So that could work out to our benefit there. Obviously, we've talked about how there is a bit of a congestion within our young guard core and not really knowing where certain guys are going to get minutes. In particular, our rookie we just drafted, Kasparas Yakuchonis. I think that this also will be a chance for him if he can show some confidence and some competencies in training camp. This could mean some meaningful minutes for him pretty early on, maybe earlier than we expected. As we know, Spo is not in a rush to start rookies, no matter how high we draft them. So that could be something that plays out. But yes, essentially, this is going to be an 8 to 14 week trial run for our guards to see who is going to get those meaningful backup minutes behind Norm, Tyler, and Davion. So a lot to figure out. We probably won't win a ton of games during this period of time, but I do think we'll learn a lot about the talent we have right now, especially these newer players.
Yeah, I think the timing of it, while it's never good to get injured, isn't the worst timing because now Spo has an entire training camp to figure out offense without Tyler. And it is especially frustrating as fans because improving the offense was, to me, probably the biggest thing to work on this offseason for the coaching staff. And I would assume because they're an excellent coaching staff, they have been working on that. And I feel like we won't get the full picture of that in Tyler's absence because, if you lose your best offensive player, it's just going to be hard to show anything. But yeah, I think you're totally right to start with Norm. I think that's the person that is going to have the biggest opportunity to just immediately come in and have high usage, get up a lot of shots, and hopefully be efficient in that. It's something Norm kind of did last season with the Clippers. If people remember, he was in all-star conversations because Kawhi had missed so much of the start of the season. Who knows why? That's a different podcast.
Actually,
But
that's this podcast. We have breaking news to add to the Pablo Torre Find Out show right here in Heat of the Moment. We have 17,000 documents to go over with you guys today.
So Norm to start the season was balling. Like he was putting up a lot of numbers very efficiently and that was alongside James Harden. When Kawhi came back, Norm was still good, but obviously in a reduced role because Kawhi soaks up so much usage. So this again will be an opportunity for Norm to establish himself. I think he'll be up for the field goal attempts, and if he is as efficient as he was last season, it'll be awesome. I do worry about, I guess, creation, and not to get too into semantics, but I know Norm will take shots and make shots. I don't know how the gap between he and Tyler in terms of creating shots for others definitely concerns me. And so that's where I started to really think about what this could mean for Davion,
Hmm.
because we saw at the end of last season, for most of it, Spo was having Davion come off the bench, kind of run the second unit, and he shot the ball incredibly well, he defended incredibly well. But I thought he showed some really good moments as a passer and as a true kind of table setter point guard. It's not like he was throwing a lot of crazy skip passes, but he was setting guys up and playing with really good tempo, in my opinion,
Hmm.
getting the sets quickly. And so now, to me, with Tyler out, I feel like it's almost an automatic that Davion and Norman are going to be the starting backcourt.
Hmm.
And I like the idea of Davion getting downhill, creating shots for Norm. Hopefully, Wiggins and whoever else is out there will be able to step up as well. But I think it's going to be we're Davion played so well after the Heat acquired him, and he earned the
Yeah.
contract. I think it was a fair contract. But now I feel like we're going to find out very quickly. Was that like a cool half season burst, and now water's going to kind of find its level, or did he really take a step
Hmm.
up and it's going to be,
Which would be astounding for us, honestly. And I think the other thing that you reminded me of is, what that looks like for the other guys on the floor. And I've seen some people tweet about this as, the news broke. But I think one thing or two players that are going to be really affected by Tyler being out, Nikola Jovic. Ankelo Ware. I think there was kind of a lot of conversation. I think even in our last pod, we talked about which one of them should be starting in the front court. And I think without Tyler there, I do believe Spo is going to lean a lot more towards Jovic. Do you feel like that's the case, or is there a case for Ware getting even more minutes now that Tyler's out?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think, and of course, we're very on the outside of all this, but just going off the 2 summers those guys had, were where he responded well to the criticism in summer league, but had to go through all that versus Nico being a positive cog in a great Slovenia team that, or a Serbian team that made a good run in Eurobasket. I I wonder if there was already momentum towards Nico starting over Ware, but yes, with the Tyler absence, I feel like it's almost a necessity because, like we're
Mhm.
talking about, passing is now pretty hard to find on this roster. There's an argument Nico might be the best passer on this roster, at least for his position right now.
Yeah.
So I think the more playmaking and more shooting spacing you can get on the court is very important. So yeah, to me, I would go with Nico over Ware. I know Ware is very effective, but I think there will be plenty of opportunity for him off the bench. And also, he and Bam can still play together, but I do think it'll be important to start Nico to maximize shooting around those main
Mhm.
guys.
One other guy I wanted to talk about in regards to other people that were going to be affected by this. Obviously, I feel like in my head, we probably don't lean crazy into Davion Mitchell and Norman Powell as creators, but rather maybe revert back to some of that inside out play we did with Bam, but also add Jovic into that as well. And so, with that, a guy that I think really will benefit from having more minutes and fit into that system, it's going to be Simone Fontecchio, who also seemed pretty impressive over the summer in his international play. I think he fits that Duncan Robinson role pretty well for Bam, who is a great passer, but a very great passer in a specific context in regards to managing dribble handoffs and things of that nature. So I think he's going to play a big role in this. I think it'll mostly just be that we're going to generate a lot of shots for him, and he'll need to be efficient there. But I think he's going to get into the rotation much faster than I originally anticipated before Tyler, had this surgery.
I think that's a great call because, and it's not always apples to apples, but at first it felt like, okay, Norm is replacing Duncan, so it's
Hmm.
not like Fontecchio, like there are all these minutes suddenly available for his archetype, but now it feels like, at least for the first month, Norm is replacing Tyler, and now Fontecchio has the chance to replace Duncan.
Hmm.
Because again, shooting wise, like I love Jaime, I love Pella, those guys are going to have more opportunities, but their role doesn't overlap with Tyler very much, in my opinion.
Hmm.
But we will need spot up shooting, which Fontecchio can provide, and he's a good like tertiary kind of playmaker, can a connector type, can keep the ball moving, and also I think just knowing Spo as a coach, as we've watched over the last several years, I feel like he's going to lean veterans that know how to do their job. Because to me,
Yeah.
with in Tyler's absence, the margin for error just shrunk to basically zero. Miami is going to have to do everything within their control almost perfectly every night to have a chance to beat teams of even similar, level. And
Hmm.
so I think vets like Fontecchio, I would be I would assume they'll get much more of an opportunity instead of guys like maybe Kasparis or even Jaime potentially, just
Yeah.
depending on what they can bring. But I
I
think,
think actually you bring up a good point because going into this pod, I thought that maybe this would be an avenue for guys like Jaime, Kasparis, some of these guys that struggled and are young and to get some more minutes. But I think the absence of Tyler might even make it harder for them to get minutes, as we don't have that firepower to lean on if they really are shaky. But
yeah,
I want to
I think
propose this question to you. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, it just reminds me of in the past where whether it was Jimmy was out or there's just limited options. Spo's, I don't know if you want to call it a curveball or like his break in case of emergency, but it's always elite defense and a ton of 3-point attempts. And you just
Hmm.
hope you can bog down the other team and make enough threes. And I feel like a guy like Fontecchio and everyone else we've mentioned really, I think that's conducive to how they want to play.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I brought this up jokingly earlier, but I did want to ask, there's a chance Tyler misses up to 14 games. Knowing Spo and our history with Spo, of those 14 games, how many of those games are going to be Terry Rozier redemption games?
This is a great question because if let's just say last year Terry like tore his ACL in camp or something.
Mhm.
I feel like everyone would be so much more optimistic about him right now, which sounds crazy, but I think everyone is so soured on Terry, and rightfully so, because we saw how many chances Spo gave him, right? Like we had
Mhm.
podcasts during the season where it was like Spo, like at a point we have to call this. Like he's not coming back. That version of Terry is gone. It really never totally clicked to Miami that first half season he was with us, but there were at least more moments you could cling on to. But yeah, he's gonna get a shot. I mean, I
Yeah, I
think
think it's inevitable. At least 5 games, I think he
right,
gets, like, real rotation minutes.
but
Maybe not
because I
starting, but
I don't think Drew Smith coming off the Achilles is going to be ready to go. That's somebody you could see Spo leaning on. I don't see him leaning on Casparis,
mm-mm.
and so then you're getting. I mean, Haywood's gone, Duncan's gone. You start to get pretty short on guys you really trust to go out there and do their job. And Terry, like we've had so many conversations about Terry, but a lot of his play last year, well, some of his play last year, it was just like, man, if the shots were going in, pretty
Yeah,
much everything else was fine. He's not an elite defender, but he was trying. He's an active
effort's there.
rebounder. Yeah, he's not like hanging his head like so sad on the bench and stuff. So I don't know. I think I'll tell you what, it'll take one good training camp before
Mhm.
Spo's like, oh yeah, this is my sixth man that's coming in like 3 minutes into every game. And honestly, he like when the Heat traded for Terry, it was like, oh man, him and Tyler are too duplicative. Like we need to get rid of one of them. Well, we got rid of one of them. His foot's broken.
You got
So
what you asked for, Heat Nation.
so I hope like this would be. I mean, you could not write a better Terry redemption arc than this. And again,
Yeah.
it should be as a 6 man start Norm, but he will get an opportunity. And honestly, with
Mhm.
Spo, like Terry might start. They might start Terry and Norm together. I don't know.
He might really want Davion to come off the bench. I just wanna prepare our 30 listeners for this, that
Yes.
it is a real non-zero chance that Terry is a starter
Yeah.
going into the beginning of this season.
And there's been reporting that the Heat want to part ways with Terry, and that's obvious. He's
Mhm.
making $26 million a year. That's just incredibly
It's
too much
just
money.
math.
Yeah, it's just too much money on the salary cap for what he's providing. But it also is too much money for any team to take. Like they'd have to attach probably an unprotected first, if not more, for some team to
Mhm.
just absorb that for similar salary. And so for that reason, their only other option is because Terry reportedly has already said he won't do a buyout, which I understand. I wouldn't give up millions of dollars either. So the only other opportunity in that sense is then to like waive and stretch him like Milwaukee did with Damian Lillard, the Phoenix did with Bradley Beal. And then you have a bunch of dead money on your books for a guy that is an expiring contract this season. And it's not
Mhm.
like you're rushing to go do anything with that money otherwise.
Yeah, there's
So
not
again,
really
I say all
availability.
this to say I think Terry will be there. I think the Tyler injury makes that even more likely. And dude, I would love it if he just goes out and balls. Like I know
Yeah.
a lot of Heat fans seem to have like a personal vendetta against
Yeah.
Terry. I get he's been bad, and I expect him to continue to be bad, but I would welcome improved play.
I love it. I love it. And I think it is worth noting that I think the Heat organization would love that as well, which maybe sounds like a no-brainer, but I think we've seen time and time and again if a guy doesn't deliver, an organization will really throw that person under the bus and in ways that feel deeply personal. But I feel like the Heat has done a very intentional job of protecting Terry. And maybe it's just a Heat culture thing. Like they don't really do that. With exception to how things went with Jimmy, they usually try to protect their guys through the entire process, whether or not it's going well or going poorly, like mostly because they want to be able to move them, but also it just I think Spo really does believe in these guys. I do think this organization believes that there's a player still there in Terry. And I think some of that shows on the court in the way his attitude, the way he meshes with the team, his effort on both sides of the ball. And so if the shots were just to start going in, I think he is a competent passer and can be an offensive engine if the shots start going in. So that's what I'm hoping for because I know we're going to see him. I know some people I feel like hope it goes badly out of some kind of punishment against Spo or punishment against Terry. But really, I would love for it to go well. And I'd love for him to turn his career around. I think he's got a lot of years to play if he can turn it around. And yeah, I guess we'll we'll have to see, and we will see. I think that's important
Yes,
to get
that's
across that
that's
we
the
will see.
important note. There's like with Drew Smith out, with Tyler out, with all those guys who listed out the door. Like you start looking at guards on this roster. If Davion and Norm are starting, unless you count Pella as a guard, it's like Kasparis and Terry. Like that's kind of it, you know. So those
Same.
guys are good, and you know we've discussed like Kasparis will get a chance because of this, but I feel like it'll be an extremely limited roles. And again,
Very spot
r-
minutes.
rookies, especially ball handling, like point guard rookies, are just going to be super mistake prone, and
Mhm.
that is something that he I feel like can no longer afford with how their margin of error is suddenly reduced with the absence of their best player. So yeah, I it in a funny way, I almost feel like Tyler's injury might make us see less Kasparis. Like
That's
maybe
yeah.
right, like before it's like well, you know, we got a 10-point lead, let's throw the rookie out there. And now every game's like we're down by 11, 5 minutes in. Like Kasparis, you stay
Bam is
on the
playing
bench.
42 minutes a game.
Well, and that is the last person I want to talk to or talk about. I'd like to talk to him as well, but
I'd love to talk to Bam. Give us a call.
so
Friend of the pod, Bam
come on
Adebayo.
in. So so yeah, Bam, I feel like is immediately where a lot of Heat fans went, right? He's if he's not the best player on the team, he's the second best. With in Tyler's absence, he's obviously the best. How is he going to, you know, ESPN headline step up in Tyler's absence? And I don't want to like get into too deep of a Bam conversation, but to me, Bam's offensive scalability is what I want to ask you about specifically, right? So, is
Mhm.
there a version of Bam that is higher usage and equally efficient, or when Bam scales up, is it just not really possible for him to continue to be a high efficiency scorer?
I think it's a possibility, but I don't know that it is a high possibility. I think there's a best case scenario where he does scale up the usage a bit and is able to, make shots at an efficient level. I think, he does a pretty good job for the most part. I just, when he's asked to do too much, you can always tell. It's like, okay, we don't need him doing all this because it's making it difficult for him to do all the other things he does very, very well. And I think with the fact that he will have some high volume shooters on the floor with him for the most part, with Norm Powell, Simone Fontecchio, and even Nikola Jovic at this point in his career, I don't know that he needs to be the play finisher at a super high usage rate. It will be higher than it would have been with Tyler there, but I don't think that needs to be the avenue we go where we just crank up the Bam Adebayo, middies or three
Right.
point shooting even. Like I don't think that's the answer. I just think the ball's going to be in his hands more often, and plays are probably going to start through him, and in the middle of our schemes are going to go through him. But I do think other people will be leaned on to finish plays as we have some more prolific shooters on the team.
Yeah, I think, and that this is another reason why I think starting Nico everywhere is important because it gives Bam more space to operate, you know,
Hmm.
frankly. And if Bam's playing the four and he's being guarded by a four, it's probably tougher for him to create super advantageous shots because
Hmm.
a lot of power forwards in this league are just about Bam's size, but they're going to be a little more quick than a center that might be guarding him. So I like the idea of starting Bam alongside Nico, hopefully get him mismatches essentially Bam that is that he has a speed advantage, can get to the basket. But yeah, the reason I ask is because I always joke like Bam's real last name might as well need to be like needs to be more aggressive because I feel like
Yeah.
that's everyone's and I get frustrated as a fan of his because I'm like you're missing the forest for the trees. Like this guy does so much on both ends, but you're like, oh, he should be shooting more. And that's why I asked because it's like what is a higher usage version of Bam look like, right? Like the stuff you pointed out, I love the idea of which handoffs with Norm, handoffs with Fontecchio, maybe like an inverted pick and roll with Jovic. There's very cool stuff you can do there. If it means increasing just Bam ISOs, I don't know if that's great offense,
I
right?
don't
Because
love
that
it.
yeah, it's gonna wear him down. First of all, it's gonna we're gonna have to be an elite defensive team to survive this. And if he's being worn down trying to carry the offense with ISOs, that's gonna then compromise defense. But then additionally, like Bam, I feel like his best offensive like I guess you would say like shot category is free throw drawn, if that makes sense. Like his highest effective play type would be Drew
Mhm.
free throw, which he's good at, especially when he has a speed advantage. But with that in mind, you and I both know so much as the years have gone on, his shots have skewed towards mid range and just these little jumpers. His floater, which even last year it felt like he got pulled even further, like out of floater range.
Getting
It was like
further and further
true,
back.
yeah, true mid range shot attempts, which I just, you have to be so good at those shots for it to be good offense. And he'll be asked to, create relief buckets, like Spo refers
Mhm.
to them, the Chris Bosh, like, hey, there's 6 seconds on the shot clock, throwing it to you at the elbow, jab step once, at least get it up on the rim. Bam will
Yeah.
have plenty of opportunities to do that. But I would like those kind of situations to be born out of desperation, not necessity, I guess,
And we will
if
be
that makes
desperate.
sense.
So
Yeah.
that's something that will take place. But you're right. I think that Bam's mid-range abilities are there. I think he's a competent mid-range shooter, and probably relatively more efficient than other guys that you really don't want taking those shots. But it is important, and I personally have a philosophy that mid-range shots are very valuable in the context that other things are happening at a very high rate. Like mid-range shots are a killer when you're a good 3-point shooting team. Mid-range shots are a killer when you get to the rim very, very effectively. Mid-range shots on their own make an offense very, very stagnant. So that is where I think we just need to be careful as a team and as an offense going forward without Tyler. But the avenues are there through our current personnel to be an effective 3-point shooting team. And so that could open up some things for Bam to play a little bit more loose and fast in that way. So we'll see. But it's going to be less about what Bam brings to the table, as I feel like that's more of a sure thing as far as just being a foundation for this organization as he's been through his entire career at this point, and more about how is everyone else going to make his job a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. So I love Bam. He will be the most important player on this team easily for the first month and probably for the entirety of the season when you take into account offense and defense. And so I don't want him to overburden himself by like trying to force a bunch of inefficient shots and it take
Mhm.
away from the great things he does normally. But hopefully starting Nico, hopefully small improvements or leaps from Pella, Jaime, and Nico especially will be able to help take some pressure off the other guys. And yeah, we'll see how it plays out. If you had to say right now, let's say Tyler misses like an even 15 games. When we come out of that, and this is assuming he's like ready to rock after that, which of course is not a given. But let's say he's kind of ready to go after that. What would the record need to be after 15 games for you to feel like? Let's say they still have a good shot at the 6th seed, because I feel like that's at least my personal hope for the season, is they can avoid the
Mhm.
play in, because that's just been so frustrating to be in the play in every year.
I think that in order to feel really good about it, I'm doing poorly on the math here, but I think we need to go at least like 7 and however many losses that is. What is that? 8 losses?
Hey, yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
to feel great about it, I probably see us going like 5 and 10.
yeah.
Feels
That
like the realistic situation, just given all the newness in the roster and not having Tyler. Not that
and
these guys aren't talented to win more, but
it's a tough start to the schedule too.
it's
Like
true.
that, I believe most of the West Coast road trip will be included in this. So yeah, the 5 wins is my line of how do I feel. If it's 5 wins, I'm like, well, that's about what I expected. Anything above that, I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
we got some
Yeah, and if we get to 7, I'm like, "Hey, we're still in the mix." We got
yeah.
Tyler coming back. That's a game share of a lot for this roster, so
Yeah, and hopefully it'll be,
or win share rather.
Steve Jones Jr. always on of the dunker spot always talks about how when guys miss time, sometimes it can be valuable for the rest of the roster to figure out
Mhm.
how they'll fit in when they return. And so yeah, best case scenario is Davion, Norm, Bam, all these guys find stuff that works, and then Tyler, who I think is a pretty easy player to play with,
Yeah.
assimilates in well, and then they can kind of hit the ground running. But yeah, if you look at that schedule, I mean, that's a lot of road games. So, but he's going to come back. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You look at Orlando, at Memphis. These are just the road games. At San Antonio, at the Lakers, at the Clippers, at Denver, and then 2 games at home against Cleveland, 2 games versus the Knicks, and then right around that time we play Golden State at home, which could be Tyler's first game back.
Sick. Well, that is going to be awesome. Now, I did want to ask you the inverse. And if
Mhm.
we get like a John Morant type situation here where, 15 games in, we're 10-5.
Mm, that is an interesting question.
What do you think what do you think that will do? And this kind of leads into our next segment in regards to contract negotiations, but
Right.
also just like how Spo will handle bringing Tyler back into the mix there, especially if we are looking particularly premium on the defensive end, and we know Tyler can struggle on that side of the ball.
This is a great question. So, I would guess how my mind is thinking of this is, okay, if everything goes really well, when Tyler comes back, he'll replace Norm in the starting lineup,
Hmm.
and they'll try and keep everything else the same. Tyler probably isn't as good of a defender as Norm, but it's not a huge gap, and he should be better offensively. And I think you hope in that instance it can kind of stay with that level of success. If things go poorly, especially offensively, it might be Tyler replacing Davion and trying to get the offense a jump start. But yeah, I
Hmm.
think the hope would be that Norm is like your Tyler facsimile, and you're like, okay, we'll just
Yeah,
everything will stay the same. It was a great 10-5 stretch. Now we just have more scoring. But yeah, I mean, a lot of great Heat playoff runs have featured an injured Tyler Herro. And of course,
yeah.
people that don't love him take that as evidence that he is not worth or not as good as
Addition by
people.
subtraction, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera.
Yeah. So that's a great question though. And like you were saying, it also leads into these contract negotiations. So October 1st, Tyler Herro is eligible to sign a 3-year, $150 million contract extension. We've talked on this show. We don't think the max was ever on the table, like the 50 million a year for him. I don't even know if he really expected that. And he still has 2 years left on his deal. So the team, and him could just revisit all this next summer. But let's say if you were the Heat, would this type of injury change your offer really? Would it have any impact on it, or would it still kind of just be wait and see till next summer?
I think it's still a wait and see. I don't know that this really changes much. I think it's, especially since it seems to be more proactive than anything. Like, it didn't seem like he had some kind of like crazy injury that took place, but more of this is maybe something that just kind of lingered. And so hopefully this will produce a much healthier Tyler after this recovery. And so, and again, I feel like all the messaging we got from the organization and even from Tyler's camp is that everybody's on the same page about pushing this off another year. Like, we can start having small conversations here and there. If we feel like we can come to some kind of agreement, that'd be great. But it does not sound like he he's not really using any kind of narrative or language that would presume he wants the full max. I'm sure he would appreciate having $50 million a year for 3 years, but I think he's understanding of where the organization is at and the kind of talent we need to bring in over the next 3 years and what that kind of contract would do. So I think they're going to come to some kind of understanding, and I think that conversation will take place next summer. So this shouldn't have any kind of effect on it unless it's longer than 15 games that he's out, the team does super well without him, and then the team does worse when he gets back.
That
That is the one scenario where the contract situation might get ugly because I think,
boy, we will have some podcast content then.
oh,
There will
buddy.
be the dialogue will be happening. There
Oh,
will
yeah.
be
We are going
discourse.
to start a dialogue for sure.
Yeah, so a lot of things need to happen before that. I think my only take on it would I would definitely be very frustrated as Tyler's camp, because I feel like other than him playing so incredibly well last year, the other great part of his season was he played 77 games, and he had
Mhm.
never played that many before. He had never played above 67. So his durability, that was a huge feather in his cap, because that has been a question for him. And so it just sucks that this season he's probably missing 15 games, and then it's no guarantee he's 100% healthy the rest of the way. And so then you could easily see him missing 20, 25 games. And so then next summer, when you come to the negotiation table, then the Heat front office can kind of be like, hey man, like, 2025 was awesome. You were an all-star, but that kind of was the only year you played 70 plus games. So that'll be
Yeah,
something. But maybe Tyler comes back a little early. It's only 12 games and he just rocks out and is still playing in like the upper 60s, and that would be great.
yeah. We'll see, but I do think that part of the conversation requires some very specific things taking place over the next 2 months in order for it to be really impactful. But otherwise, I think it's business as usual.
Yeah. Um, any closing thoughts? I would say draft Norman Powell in fantasy, probably. Gonna
Yeah, I
be
think
putting up
he's
some
gonna.
numbers.
You should draft Norman Powell every year. I think Norman Powell has won in our league. Has been on like a winning roster at least 3 or 4 times over the past 6 years. He is great. He just creates stats all the time. I am very curious about what's going to happen with Khalil Ware this year. I
Hmm.
think this impacts him maybe more negatively than anybody else on the roster.
Hmm.
I don't
That's
know.
a good point.
Yeah, I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on. I think he's going to do his best to be as professional as he can through the process. But I think Ware is just one of those guys you can tell when he's frustrated, even when he is being professional. And in a certain way, you can appreciate that. It's like you can tell a guy is upset, but he's doing his best to, not make a scene and try to fit in. But I think he's probably going to be impacted the worst by this just because I don't know that Spo is going to trust him in the offense without Tyler there to kind of back them up and be a foundation from a scoring standpoint. So we'll see what happens there. Wishing the best for him. I love the guy. I really loved how things transpired during the summer league, and I think Spo's going to remember that and hopefully reward him for it in ways. But it's going to require some really efficient shooting, I think, from him on the offensive end for him to stay on the floor.
Yeah, that's an excellent call by you. I'm really glad you brought that up because I really hadn't considered that because, like we were saying, immediately when the injury happened, I was like, okay, we got to start Nico. And then my
Mhm.
thought was more in the starting group. But I just pulled it up because when you said that, I was like, that's so true. Like everywhere basket I can think of basically came from a Tyler pass. And yeah, I looked up assisted by field goal makes for Khalil Ware. Tyler Hero, 54. Next closest person was Jovic with 20. So Tyler had more than double field goals created for
Yeah.
Ware than anyone else. So
Now, that being said, this could be the creation and birth of Norm Powell, Khalil Ware magical connection that we would have never had a chance to see. But in the absence of that, I don't know where he's going to get his passes from.
yeah, Duncan was third with 18 assists. So that's tough. So yeah, that's a great call though, because yeah, Ware is very creator dependent. Like somebody needs to
Mhm.
kind of make that basket for him most of the time. They're not going to run post ups for him. He's not going to run pick and roll. And we just the team just lost their best creator essentially. So Davion will be asked of him, and Jovic too. All those people, like I think it was just last episode, I was like, these people with these Jovic expectations got to chill out. Well, hey man, he's got a shot now. He might be the starting point guard, basically. So we're about to
Amazing.
see just how much he can handle, I think.
Which is so funny because Jovic was very good in international play this year, but clearly playing next to the greatest basketball player in the world.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like you have to understand he is not coming back to that same context.
Right.
You should understand that he might be frustrated. He's got to come play with this terrible team after going and playing with Nikola
Relax.
Jokic.
Relax.
He
They
gets to
didn't
play with
even
a bunch of
win.
people that speak his own language, and he's playing with the best player in the world. And now he's got to come back to America and struggle without Tyler Hero. So, um, hopefully, he steps up. Hopefully, he is the player that we all want him to be. And I'm really excited to find out what happens, and also nervous. But yeah, that's all
Yeah.
I got.
Yeah, Nico honestly might be walking a bit of a tightrope because, like we're saying, like Spo's going to lean defense. And if you had to say, who does Spo trust more defensively, Nico or Ware?
Where I think it's
I
where
think that
I
might be
think
true.
it's which is not good because it's not like he trusts Ware a lot. It's
Right.
just actually that he does not trust Jovic very much at all
Yeah.
from a decision making standpoint.
Yeah.
No, Jovic has gotten so much better since his
Yes.
rookie year, but it has been a process for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna obsess over every training camp report regardless, but
Mhm.
this training camp especially, like, when are we gonna get the first like Terry Rozier looks really sharp? Like when when are we?
Oh my god. That's gonna be a jump scare on the
Yes,
timeline.
absolutely, and I
Terry
can't wait.
Rozier shoots 80% from the floor at training camp.
Yeah, he's gonna have like a 20-point preseason game, and we're all gonna be like, "Well, I mean, I could talk myself back into it if you could talk yourself back into it."
Oh
But
my
we shall
gosh.
see. We're just a few weeks away, so everybody, obviously, as the season ramps up, we'll be ramping up as well, providing some more episodes for you guys. But it was very fun to be back, even if it was for a bit of a sad reason. But it gives us a lot of fascinating things to watch out for coming up because a lot of guys will have to step up and the team will look a lot different, at least for the first month of the season. So we appreciate you guys as always for tuning in. If you have any thoughts or comments about anything we discussed today, what you think Tyler's absence, what kind of impact that'll have on the team, feel free to comment that if you're on YouTube or Spotify, anywhere that lets you give us any kind of feedback. And also, if you're on those platforms, please like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys as always for tuning in. For myself, Micah, my good friend Lino, we will talk to you guys next time.